Fleet Commander Vexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. His forearms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. The planet called Kepler 442b hung in space like a jewel, and soon it would belong to the Zelrani Confederation. "Sir, we are detecting 3 human vessels in orbit around the planet," reported Science Officer Credan. Her voice carried the usual tone of dismissal that all Zelrani used when speaking about humans. "They appear to be small cargo ships. Nothing more." Vexthal's eyes narrowed as he studied the sensor readings. The humans had been expanding through this part of the galaxy for several decades now. The Confederation had watched them from a distance, noting their crude technology and primitive social structures. They were young, barely out of their home system, and certainly no match for the might of the Confederation. "How long have they been on this world?" Vexthal asked. "Our long-range sensors suggest about 5 years, Commander. They have established a small colony on the northern continent. Population appears to be around 50,000 humans." Vexthal turned to face his tactical officer. "Send the standard message. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender their world to Confederation authority. Offer them the usual terms of integration." On the human ships orbiting the planet, alarms began to sound. Admiral Jake Morrison stepped onto the bridge of the USS Freedom's Call, his coffee still steaming in his hand. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. "What do we have, Rogers?" he asked his communications officer. Lieutenant Commander Paul Rogers looked up from his station. 12 alien ships just dropped out of hyperspace, sir. They're big ones. And they're sending us a message." Morrison took a sip of his coffee and nodded. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared showed a tall, 4-armed creature with pale blue skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the translation system rendered its words in perfect English. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Commander Vexthal of the Zelrani Confederation. You are trespassing in space that now belongs to our government. You have one standard, hour to evacuate this system and prepare your world for integration into our society. Submit now, and your people will be treated with mercy. Resist, and face the consequences of defying a superior civilization." Morrison set down his coffee cup and smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Rogers, open a channel to the Iron Wolf and Ghost Rider. Tell Captain Hayes and Captain Clark that we have visitors. Also send a message to Command. Tell them the Zelrani just made first contact and they chose to do it with threats." "Yes, sir," Rogers replied. "Should I send our response to the aliens?" "Not yet. Let them wait a few minutes. It's rude to threaten people before you even introduce yourself properly." On the Confederation flagship, Vexthal watched the human ships. Through his sensors, they seemed to be maintaining their positions, showing no signs of retreat. This puzzled him. Most species, when faced with the full might of a Confederation fleet, chose the wise path of immediate surrender. "Commander," Credan said, studying her instruments, "the human ships are not moving. They appear to be waiting." "Waiting for what?" Vexthal asked. "Unknown, sir. However, I am detecting some unusual energy readings from their vessels. Their power signatures are much stronger than our previous observations suggested." Vexthal felt a small flutter of uncertainty. The Confederation had been monitoring human expansion for years. Their ships were supposed to be primitive, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. But the readings Credan was showing him suggested something different. "Are you certain these are the same type of vessels we observed before?" he asked. "The basic design appears similar, Commander. However, these ships seem to have been significantly modified. I am reading multiple hull layers, advanced shielding systems, and weapon signatures that do not match our previous data." Back on the Freedom's Call, Morrison was reviewing tactical displays with his senior officers. Captain Lisa Hayes had joined the meeting via hologram from her ship, the Iron Wolf. She was a small woman with short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "Jake, our sensors are picking up standard Zelrani plasma weapons and energy shields," she reported. "Nothing we haven't seen before, but they have 12 heavy cruisers. That's a lot of firepower." Captain Ryan Clark's image appeared next to Hayes. He was younger than the other two, with sandy hair and a relaxed manner that hid his sharp tactical mind. The Ghost Rider is ready for whatever you decide, Admiral. My crew is eager to test our new toys against real targets. Morrison nodded. Remember, people, this is first contact. Everything we do here will set the tone for future relations with the Confederation. Let's try to make the right impression. Which impression would that be, sir? Hayes asked with a slight smile. That humans are not to be underestimated. The hour passed slowly on both sides. Vexthul grew more irritated as the minutes ticked by. No species had ever ignored a Confederation ultimatum for this long. When the time expired, he ordered his communications officer to hail the human ships again. This time, Admiral Morrison answered immediately. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. I've reviewed your message, Commander. Vexthul, thank you for the offer, but we'll have to pass. This world is under human protection and we have no intention of abandoning our people. Vexthul's 4 hands clenched into fists. Admiral Morrison, you clearly do not understand the situation. We have 12 warships. You have 3 small vessels. Surrender now, or we will take your world by force. Morrison's response was calm and measured. Commander, you clearly don't understand humans very well. We don't abandon our people, and we don't surrender our worlds. If you want to fight, you'll get one, but I strongly suggest you reconsider your approach. Your courage is admirable but foolish, human. You cannot possibly stand against our fleet. Morrison shrugged. Maybe not, but we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do. The transmission ended, and Vexthul stared at the blank screen. In all his years of service, no species had ever responded to Confederation demands with such casual defiance. Most civilizations recognized the futility of resistance when faced with overwhelming force. Commander, his tactical officer reported, the human ships are beginning to move. They appear to be taking defensive positions. Vexthul looked at the tactical display. The 3 human vessels were spreading out, using the planet's gravity well and nearby asteroids for cover. It was a competent defensive formation, but ultimately meaningless against his superior numbers. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. Prepare to demonstrate the price of defying the Confederation. Target the human vessels and prepare to fire on my command. What Vexthul didn't know was that the 3 ships he could see were not the only human vessels in the system. Hidden behind the planet's largest moon, a much larger force waited in complete silence, their advanced stealth systems masking their presence from Confederation sensors. The real battle was about to begin, and the Zelrani had no idea what they were truly facing. The first plasma bolts from the Zelrani fleet lit up space like deadly fireworks. Bright green energy beams lanced across the darkness toward the 3 human ships. Vexthul watched with satisfaction as his weapons found their targets, expecting to see the primitive human vessels torn apart by superior Confederation firepower. Instead, something impossible happened. The plasma bolts struck the human ships and simply disappeared. Where Vexthul expected to see explosions and debris, he saw the human vessels continuing their steady course completely undamaged. What just happened? He demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, Commander. Our plasma cannons scored direct hits, but the human ships show no damage. It's as if our weapons had no effect at all. On the bridge of the Iron Wolf, Captain Lisa Hayes smiled grimly as she watched the alien weapon's fire bounce harmlessly off her ship's hull. Well, that was rude. They didn't even wait for us to finish talking. Her tactical officer, Commander Nick Thompson, looked up from his station. Captain, their plasma weapons are operating at exactly the frequencies we expected. Our reactive armor is absorbing the energy and converting it to ship's power. We're actually running at 110% capacity right now. Hayes nodded. Human scientists had been studying Zelrani technology through long-range observations for years. When they learned that the Confederation used plasma weapons almost exclusively, human engineers had developed armor specifically designed to counter that type of attack. Thompson, return fire. Let's show them what human weapons look like. The Iron Wolf's main guns opened up, and the difference was immediately obvious. Instead of energy beams, the human ship fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Kinetic impactors, each one a dense tungsten rod accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, streaked toward the Confederation fleet. The first impactor struck a Zelrani cruiser amidships. The alien ship's energy shields flared and held for exactly 0.3 seconds before collapsing completely. The tungsten rod punched through the hull like it was made of paper, creating a gaping hole that vented atmosphere and debris into space. Vexthul stared in shock as his tactical displays showed impossible readings. How can primitive kinetic weapons penetrate our shields? Science Officer Credan was frantically analyzing the data. Commander, these are not primitive weapons. The projectiles are moving at nearly 20% of light speed. The kinetic energy involved is enormous. Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, not physical impacts of this magnitude. The second human ship, the Ghost Rider, began firing a different type of weapon entirely. Captain Ryan Clark had ordered his crew to deploy their experimental rail-assisted torpedo system. Nuclear warheads launched from magnetic accelerators screamed toward the Confederation fleet at velocities that made tracking them nearly impossible. Incoming missiles, multiple contacts, reported the Zelrani tactical officer, attempting to intercept with point defense systems. The Confederation ships fired their anti-missile lasers, but the human torpedoes were moving too fast and following unpredictable flight paths. Worse, they seemed to be actively evading the defensive fire, adjusting their courses in real time. 3 nuclear explosions bloomed among the Confederation fleet. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted Zelrani sensors and communications while the radiation played havoc with their energy shields. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Freedom's Call. His ship had not yet fired a shot, but that was about to change. Chief Santos, how are our new toys performing? He asked his chief engineer. Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her console with a wide grin. The modular weapon systems are working perfectly, Admiral. All 3 configuration changes completed successfully. We're ready to show these aliens something they've never seen before. The Freedom's Call began to transform. Hull plates shifted and rotated, revealing weapon systems that had been hidden inside the ship's structure. The vessel that the Zelrani had identified as a simple cargo ship suddenly bristled with railguns, missile launchers, and energy weapons of completely unknown design. What in the name of the ancestors is that? Vexthul whispered. His ships were now taking heavy damage from weapons they didn't understand, fired by vessels that seemed to be changing their configurations in the middle of battle. Every time his tactical officers thought they understood the human capabilities, the enemy ships revealed new weapon systems. The worst part was the asteroids. The humans were using the asteroid field around the planet as both cover and ammunition. The Iron Wolf fired magnetic grapples at large rocks, accelerated them with tractor beams, and hurled them at Confederation ships with devastating accuracy. Sir, reported his communications officer. We're receiving damage reports from all ships. The Eternal Glory has lost main power. The Star Crusher reports hull breaches on multiple decks, and the Solar Wind is requesting permission to retreat. Vexthul couldn't believe what he was hearing. His fleet was being defeated by 3 ships. 3 primitive human vessels were systematically dismantling 12 of the Confederation's finest warships. All ships, concentrate fire on the largest human vessel, he ordered. Pour everything we have into their flagship. Every functioning Zelrani ship turned its weapons on the Freedom's Call. Dozens of plasma beams converged on Admiral Morrison's ship in a display of firepower that should have vaporized any vessel ever built. Instead, the human ship seemed to absorb the energy like a sponge. Its hull glowed briefly, then returned to normal. Not only was it undamaged, but its own weapons seemed to be firing faster and hitting harder than before. Chief Santos, Morrison said calmly, I believe our power absorption systems are working as designed. Yes, sir, Santos replied happily. We're now running at 150% capacity. All weapon systems are operating well above normal parameters. The more they shoot at us, the stronger we get. Commander Thompson on the Iron Wolf was coordinating the human response with military precision. Ghost Rider, target their command ship. Freedom's Call, can you take out their communications array? I want them confused and isolated. The 3 human ships moved through the battle like dancers, their actions perfectly coordinated despite the chaos around them. They shared targeting, data in real time, adjusted their tactics based on enemy responses, and adapted to new threats with frightening speed. But the most terrifying thing, from the Zelrani perspective, was that the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. "Captain," reported the Iron Wolf sensor officer, "I'm detecting what appears to be laughter on several human communication channels." Hayes smiled. "That would be Chief Petty Officer Johnson. He always laughs when the weapons work better than expected." "Thompson, what's our ammunition status?" "We've used approximately 15% of our kinetic rounds, Captain. At this rate, we could keep fighting for hours." The tide of battle had turned completely. What had started as a simple intimidation mission for the Confederation had become a nightmare of impossible human technology and tactics they couldn't counter. Vexthul watched another of his ships suffer critical damage from a weapon that seemed to bend space-time itself. The humans were using gravitational distortions as weapons, creating localized fields that crushed hull plating and twisted metal like clay. "Commander," Credan said quietly, "perhaps we should consider retreat. Our losses are becoming severe, and we still don't understand how their technology works." But Vexthul's pride wouldn't allow retreat. Not from 3 primitive human ships. Not when the entire Confederation was watching. "No," he said firmly. "Signal the reserve fleet. Tell them to jump to our position immediately. We'll show these humans what real firepower looks like." What he didn't know was that the humans had been monitoring Confederation communications since the battle began. Admiral Morrison already knew about the reserve fleet, and he was ready for them. In fact, he was looking forward to their arrival. 3 human ships had proven more than adequate against 12 Confederation vessels. He was curious to see what would happen when the odds became even more unfavorable. The real surprise, however, was still to come. The 3 ships the aliens had been fighting weren't even proper warships. They were research vessels with retrofitted weapons, testing new technologies in actual combat conditions. The real human fleet was still waiting behind the moon. Science Officer Creedon stared at her instruments in growing horror. The readings made no sense according to everything the Confederation knew about warfare and technology. The human ships weren't just winning. They were doing impossible things. "Commander." "Vexthul," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I need to report something that defies our understanding of physics. The human vessel designated Freedom's Call just ejected its entire port weapons section and then replaced it with a completely different configuration, in the middle of battle." Vexthul turned from watching another of his ships take critical damage. "What do you mean, replaced it?" "Sir, the humans appear to have built their ships in modular sections. When one system is damaged or becomes ineffective, they simply discard it and attach a new one. I'm detecting at least 6 different weapon modules that just arrived from somewhere else in the system." On the Freedom's Call, Chief Engineer Maria Santos was orchestrating what looked like mechanical chaos, but was actually carefully planned engineering. Her crew was swapping out weapon systems like changing batteries in a flashlight. "Module 7 is locked and loaded, Chief," reported one of her technicians. "The gravitational lens array is online and ready for targeting." Santos grinned. "Perfect. Deploy Module 7 and prep Module 12 for installation. I want to see how their shields handle quantum disruption torpedoes." Admiral Morrison watched the process with satisfaction. Human military doctrine had always emphasized adaptability over raw power. Why build one massive warship when you could build a flexible platform that could reconfigure itself for any situation? "Admiral," called his tactical officer, "the Zelrani are trying something new. They're coordinating their plasma cannons to create overlapping fields of energy. It's actually quite clever." Morrison nodded approvingly. "They're learning. Good. For them. Santos, do we have anything to counter coordinated plasma bombardment?" "As a matter of fact, sir, we do. Module 15 contains our experimental plasma absorption network. Instead of deflecting their energy, we can store it and redirect it back at them through our own weapon systems." The transformation was visible to the naked eye. The Freedom's Call sprouted new antenna arrays and collection dishes across its hull. When the coordinated Zelrani plasma bombardment struck, instead of bouncing off, the energy was absorbed completely. Moments later, the human ship returned fire with plasma weapons that were identical to Confederation technology, but somehow more powerful. Captain Lisa Hayes was having similar success with her own innovations. The Iron Wolf had just demonstrated something that sent chills through every Zelrani sensor operator, the ability to phase in and out of normal space. "Thompson," she called to her tactical officer, "how's our dimensional displacement system working?" Commander Nick Thompson consulted his readings with obvious excitement. "Better than the lab tests predicted, Captain. We can maintain phase displacement for up to 30 seconds at a time, and the recharge cycle is only 40 seconds. The enemy can't target what they can't detect." The Iron Wolf flickered in and out of existence like a ghost. Each time it reappeared, it was in a different position, firing weapons that seemed to come from impossible angles. Zelrani return fire passed harmlessly through empty space where the human ship had been moments before. But it was Captain Ryan Clark on the Ghost Rider who was truly pushing the boundaries of what the aliens thought possible. His ship had begun manufacturing new weapons during the battle itself. "Captain," reported his chief engineer, "our molecular fabrication system has completed construction of the Mark 7 kinetic penetrators. These ones are specifically designed to counter Zelrani shield frequencies." Clark smiled. "Excellent. Load them into tubes 1 through 8 and prepare for rapid fire sequence. Also, how's our analysis of the enemy hull composition coming along?" "We've identified 17 different weak points in their armor design, sir. Our adaptive targeting system is already adjusting our aim points accordingly." Dr. Helen Park, the fleet scientist aboard the Ghost Rider, was coordinating real-time analysis of alien technology. Every piece of debris, every energy signature, every tactical maneuver was being studied and cataloged. "Captain Clark," she announced, "I've isolated the frequency patterns of their communication systems. We can now intercept and decode their tactical communications in real time. Also, I believe I found a way to disrupt their shield generators using harmonic resonance." The implications hit the Zelrani fleet like a cold shock. Not only were the humans fighting with superior technology, they were learning and adapting faster than any species the Confederation had ever encountered. Vexthul watched his tactical displays update with increasingly grim information. His fleet had started the battle with overwhelming numerical superiority. Now, barely an hour later, 4 of his ships were completely disabled, 3 more were heavily damaged, and the rest were being systematically picked apart by weapons that seemed to change every few minutes. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans appear to be sharing information between their vessels instantaneously. Every adaptation, every new weapon configuration, every tactical innovation is immediately available to all 3 ships." "How is that possible?" Vexthul demanded. "Unknown, Commander. Their communication systems operate on principles we don't understand. The data transfer rates are impossibly high, and there's no detectable delay between their ships." What the aliens didn't realize was that human ships were equipped with quantum entanglement communication systems. Information could be shared instantly across any distance, allowing the entire fleet to function as a single, coordinated organism. The battle was becoming more surreal by the minute. The Ghost Rider launched a spread of missiles that seemed to multiply in flight, each one splitting into smaller submunitions that attacked from different angles. The Iron Wolf fired energy beams that curved through space like guided projectiles, following impossible trajectories to strike targets hiding behind asteroids. The Freedom's Call deployed some kind of field weapon that caused Zelrani ships to simply stop functioning. Their crews unharmed, but their technology completely disabled. "Commander," Science Officer Credan said quietly, "I'm beginning to understand why the humans are so confident. They don't fight like any other species we've encountered. Most civilizations develop one type of technology and perfect it over centuries. Humans seem to have developed every possible type of technology simultaneously." Vexthul studied the tactical display, watching his ships being outmaneuvered by vessels that seemed to reinvent themselves every few minutes. "What do you mean?" "Sir, in this single engagement, the humans have demonstrated mastery of kinetic weapons, energy weapons, missile systems, stealth technology, shields, armor, dimensional manipulation, gravitational control, quantum mechanics, and technologies I can't even identify. It's as if they approach warfare as a scientific experiment rather than a military exercise. The truth of her words became apparent when Lieutenant Amy Foster's fighter squadron finally joined the battle. The small human ships moved like schools of fish, their coordination so perfect that they seemed to share a collective mind. They used the larger ships as mobile bases, docking and undocking to rearm and refuel without ever stopping their attack runs. "New contacts," reported the Zelrani sensor operator. 24 small human craft approaching at high speed. Vexthal almost laughed. Fighter craft against cruisers. Even the humans couldn't be that confident. His amusement died when the fighters opened fire with weapons that no ship their size should have been able to carry. Each fighter seemed to pack the firepower of a frigate, and they moved with inhuman precision through the battlefield. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "I think those fighters are controlled by artificial intelligence. No organic pilot could react that quickly or coordinate that perfectly." The revelation sent a new chill through the Confederation fleet. Not only were the humans technologically superior, they had artificial minds helping them fight. The tactical possibilities of AI-assisted warfare were staggering, but the final shock came when Sergeant Major Carlos Rivera's Marine boarding teams reached 2 of the disabled Zelrani ships. Instead of attempting to capture them, the humans began cutting sample sections from the alien hulls and technology systems. "They're not trying to board us," reported the captain of the Eternal Glory. "They're studying us. They're taking pieces of our ships back to their vessels for analysis." Within minutes, the human ships began firing new weapons specifically designed to counter Zelrani technology, weapons that had been designed, tested, and manufactured during the battle itself, based on direct analysis of captured alien systems. Vexthal finally understood what he was facing. The humans weren't just fighting a battle, they were conducting a live-fire research project. Every engagement taught them something new, and every lesson was immediately applied to improve their effectiveness. His fleet wasn't losing to superior technology. They were losing to superior learning. The moment that changed everything came when Admiral Morrison's reinforcements finally revealed themselves. What the Zelrani had thought was empty space around the system's outer planets suddenly came alive with new contacts. "Sir," the Confederation sensor operator's voice cracked with strain, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. New human vessels are appearing everywhere." Fleet Commander Vexthal felt his 4 hearts skip a beat as the tactical display updated. Dozens of new contacts were appearing, not arriving from hyperspace, but simply becoming visible as their stealth systems deactivated. The humans had been hiding an entire fleet right under his sensors. "How many ships?" he asked quietly. 87 new contacts, Commander. Various sizes from destroyer class up to... Sir, some of these vessels are enormous. Much larger than anything in our fleet." The human reinforcements moved with the same impossible coordination that had characterized the first 3 ships. But now, instead of fighting like individual vessels, they flowed through space like a living organism. Ships would break off from the main group to attack specific targets, then seamlessly rejoin the formation to share their data with the whole fleet. Lieutenant Amy Foster led her fighter squadrons in a demonstration of tactics that the Zelrani had never imagined possible. Her pilots didn't just fly in formation, they flew as extensions of a single intelligence, their movements coordinated by AI systems that processed battlefield information faster than any organic brain could function. "Blue Squadron, target the communication arrays on ships 4 through 7, she commanded. "Gold Squadron, I want you to disable their sensor platforms. Red Squadron, clear a path for the boarding teams." Her fighters moved like a swarm of angry insects, each pilot knowing exactly where every other fighter would be at any moment. They shared targeting data instantaneously, coordinated their attacks to overwhelm point defenses, and adapted their tactics in real time based on enemy responses. But the most terrifying aspect of the human attack was how they seemed to learn from every exchange. When a Zelrani ship successfully shot down one of the human fighters, the wreckage was immediately retrieved by other human vessels. Within minutes, every remaining fighter had upgraded armor specifically designed to counter whatever weapon had achieved the kill. Sergeant Major Carlos Rivera, was orchestrating boarding operations that defied every military doctrine the Confederation understood. His Marine teams weren't trying to capture enemy ships. They were harvesting technology. Team Alpha, I want samples from their shield generators, Rivera commanded over the comm system. Team Beta, focus on their weapon control systems. Team Gamma, see if you can grab one of their computer cores without triggering their security systems. The human Marines moved through disabled Zelrani ships like scientists in a laboratory. They cut sections from walls, extracted components from weapon systems, and carefully removed alien technology for immediate transport back to human vessels. Sir, one of his Marines reported, we've got a complete plasma cannon assembly ready for transport. Dr. Park says she can have it reverse-engineered and incorporated into our weapon systems within the hour. Rivera smiled grimly. Outstanding. Remember, people, we're not here to hold territory. We're here to learn everything these aliens can teach us. Dr. Helen Park coordinated the analysis effort from her laboratory aboard the Ghost Rider. Every piece of alien technology that the Marines retrieved was immediately subjected to detailed analysis by both human scientists and AI systems working in perfect harmony. Fascinating, she muttered as she examined a Zelrani shield generator. Their approach is completely different from ours, but the underlying physics are sound. If we combine their energy manipulation techniques with our own gravitational field technology. Her fingers flew over her console as she designed new weapon systems in real time. The beauty of human military doctrine was its emphasis on rapid adaptation. Where other species might spend years developing new technologies, humans could prototype, test, and deploy new systems in the middle of a battle. Dr. Park, to all ships, she announced over the fleet communication system. I'm uploading specifications for Mark the 8th shield penetrators. These are specifically designed to counter Zelrani energy barriers. Also, I've identified a resonance frequency that should disable their gravity control systems. Throughout the human fleet, manufacturing systems came online. 3D printers, molecular assemblers, and automated fabrication units began producing new weapons based on Dr. Park's analysis. The humans weren't just fighting with the weapons they had brought to battle, they were inventing new ones based on what they learned from the enemy. Captain Ryan Clark watched the tactical display with professional interest as human ships began deploying the new shield penetrators. The weapons worked exactly as designed, punching through Zelrani defenses that had previously been impenetrable. Captain, his tactical officer reported, the new resonance disruptors are incredibly effective. We can now disable enemy vessels without causing significant casualties. Their ships just stop working. Clark nodded approvingly. Excellent. Begin targeting their remaining functional vessels with the disruptors. I want them alive but helpless. We still have a lot to learn from them. The tide of battle had become a tsunami. What had started as a 12-3 engagement was now an 87-8 rout, with the Zelrani desperately trying to maintain even basic formation cohesion. Vexthul watched his fleet disintegrate around him. His ships weren't being destroyed so much as systematically disabled and analyzed. The humans seemed more interested in studying Confederation technology than in achieving military victory. Commander, Science Officer Credan said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been analyzing human tactical communications. Sir, they're not treating this as a battle. They're treating it as a field test for new technologies. What do you mean? Sir, I've intercepted dozens of messages between human vessels. They're discussing test parameters, data collection protocols, and experimental procedures. This entire engagement appears to be a live-fire evaluation of their military capabilities. The implications were staggering. The humans weren't fighting for their lives or their territory. They were using the Confederation fleet as test subjects for their weapons development program. And there's something else, Commander, Credan continued. Based on their communications, these aren't even their primary military vessels. The ships we've been fighting are designated as research platforms with experimental weapon packages. Vexthul felt something cold settle in his stomach. Are you saying their actual warships haven't joined the battle yet? That's correct, sir. According to their communications, Their main battle fleet is still in reserve, observing the engagement and collecting performance data on their experimental systems. The absurdity of the situation was almost too much to process. The Confederation's finest fleet was being systematically dismantled by human research vessels conducting field tests. The actual human military hadn't even bothered to participate in the engagement. But the most disturbing revelation came from monitoring human communications during the boarding operations. Sergeant Rivera's Marines were finding things aboard. Zelrani ships that challenged everything the Confederation believed about their own technology. "Command, this is Team Alpha," came Rivera's voice over the intercepted communications. "We've accessed their main computer core and the data is interesting. These ships are using technology that's at least 50 years behind current human standards. Their weapon systems are primitive, their shields are inefficient, and their computers are painfully slow." "Copy that, Alpha," came the response from Admiral Morrison. "Continue the analysis. I want to understand how they've maintained their military reputation with such outdated equipment." The answer, it turned out, was simple. The Confederation had never faced an opponent that could match their technology. They had built their reputation by conquering species that were even less advanced than themselves. Dr. Park's analysis confirmed the Marines' assessment. "Admiral Morrison, based on our examination of captured Zelrani systems, I can confirm that their technology is significantly inferior to our own. Their success appears to be based on overwhelming numerical superiority rather than technological advancement." Morrison's response was characteristically human. "Interesting. Well, let's show them what happens when they don't have numerical superiority." The human fleet began to demonstrate capabilities that the Zelrani had never imagined. Ships that could phase in and out of normal space-time, weapons that manipulated gravity itself, and defensive systems that converted enemy attacks into additional power for human systems. But the most impressive display was still to come. Admiral Morrison was preparing to reveal just how much the humans had been holding back, and why this entire engagement had been nothing more than a training exercise. For the real human military, the battle ended not with explosions or surrender, but with a simple message broadcast across all frequencies by Admiral Morrison. "Attention Confederation Fleet. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You have fought bravely, but this engagement is over. Cease fire immediately, and we will discuss terms for your safe return to Confederation space." Fleet Commander Vexthul stared at the communication console in disbelief. The humans were offering him terms. After destroying most of his fleet and demonstrating technological superiority that defied imagination? "Sir," his tactical officer reported quietly, "all of our functional ships have been disabled by some kind of resonance weapon. We have life support and basic systems, but no weapons, no shields, and no engines. We are completely at their mercy." Vexthul looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were afraid, confused, and utterly defeated by an enemy that had treated their best efforts as a training exercise. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he said finally. Morrison's image appeared on the main screen. He looked calm and relaxed, as if he had just finished a routine patrol rather than a major space battle. "Commander Vexthul, I trust your crew is unharmed. Our weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy. We prefer to avoid unnecessary casualties when possible." "Admiral Morrison," Vexthul said, struggling to maintain his dignity, "your technological capabilities far exceed our intelligence reports. How is this possible? Our long-range observations suggested that human technology was primitive compared to Confederation standards." Morrison smiled slightly. "Commander, you made the same mistake that many species make when they first encounter humanity. You assumed that what you could see was all we had. The truth is, we've been aware of Confederation expansion for decades. We've been studying your technology, your tactics, and your intentions very carefully. But your ships, your weapons, they're unlike anything we've encountered." "That's because they're prototypes," Morrison explained patiently. "The vessels you've been fighting are research platforms designed to test new technologies under actual combat conditions. Everything you've seen today, the modular weapons, the adaptive systems, the real-time manufacturing, These are all experimental technologies that our scientists wanted to evaluate. The implications hit Vexthul like a physical blow. You used our fleet as a test target for your experimental weapons? In a manner of speaking, yes. When you arrived with hostile intentions and issued ultimatums, you provided us with an excellent opportunity to field test our new systems against actual opponents. The data we've collected today will improve our defensive capabilities significantly. Science Officer Credan leaned forward to whisper urgently in Vexthul's ear. Commander, if these were just test platforms, where are their actual warships? As if summoned by her question, new contacts began appearing on sensors throughout the system. But these weren't the research vessels they had been fighting. These were massive, purpose-built warships that dwarfed anything in the Confederation fleet. Ah, Morrison said, noticing the sensor readings on his own displays. Right on schedule. Commander Vexthul, I'd like you to meet Admiral Kate Collins of Strategic Command. She's here with some of our actual military vessels. A new image appeared, alongside Morrison's. Admiral Collins was an older woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. When she spoke, her voice carried the absolute authority of someone accustomed to command. Commander Vexthul, I've been monitoring this engagement from a distance. Your fleet fought well against overwhelming odds, but I think it's time we had an honest conversation about the situation. The tactical display updated to show the new arrivals. 12 massive human dreadnoughts had taken positions throughout the system, their presence so overwhelming that the remaining Confederation ships looked like toys by comparison. These are our actual military vessels, Collins explained. The ships you've been fighting are research platforms operated by our Defense Technology Division. Impressive, certainly, but they're not warships in the traditional sense. Dr. Helen Park's voice came over the communication system from her laboratory. Admiral Collins, I've completed my analysis of Confederation technology. Their systems are approximately 50 years behind current human standards, but they show excellent engineering within those limitations. I believe there's significant potential for technological exchange. Morrison nodded approvingly. Dr. Park raises an interesting point, Commander. Your people have developed some technologies in directions that we haven't fully explored. While your overall capabilities are more limited than ours, there are aspects of your engineering that could benefit human research. Vexthul struggled to process what he was hearing. You want to trade technology with us after this battle? Why not? Morrison asked. You came here with hostile intentions, but that doesn't mean we can't find common ground. Humanity has always preferred cooperation to conflict when possible. Ambassador Susan Mitchell materialized on the bridge of Vexthul's flagship, transported by human teleporter technology that the Confederation had never imagined possible. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a diplomatic smile. Commander. Vexthul, she said pleasantly. I'm Ambassador Mitchell. I've been authorized to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this situation. Would you be willing to discuss terms for a formal first contact agreement between our species? The absurdity of the moment was almost overwhelming. His fleet had been defeated by experimental weapons. His technology had been proven obsolete, and now the humans were offering diplomatic relations as if nothing unusual had happened. Ambassador, Vexthul said carefully, what exactly are you proposing? Something quite simple, actually. Your people withdraw from this system and any other human-occupied territories. In exchange, we'll share certain technological innovations that could significantly improve Confederation capabilities. We're also prepared to establish formal diplomatic relations and discuss mutually beneficial trade agreements. And if we refuse? Morrison's expression didn't change, but something cold entered his eyes. Commander, I want to be very clear about something. Everything you've witnessed today was us being polite. The weapons you've seen, the tactics we've demonstrated, the technologies we've revealed. All of this represents humanity acting with restraint. Admiral Collins leaned forward slightly. Commander, the research platforms that defeated your fleet represent approximately 3% of total human military capability. If we wanted to conquer Confederation space, we could do so in a matter of weeks. But we don't want conquest. We want peaceful coexistence. However, Morrison continued, if the Confederation continues to threaten human colonies or civilian populations, you'll discover that our definition of polite can change very quickly. To emphasize the point, one of the human dreadnoughts powered up a weapon system that made space itself seem to bend around the ship. The energy readings were so massive that they overloaded Confederation sensors. That's a planetary siege weapon, Collins explained casually. We built it to crack asteroids for mining operations, but it works quite well for other purposes. Each of our dreadnoughts carries 12 of them. Vexthul looked at his tactical displays, seeing his fleet of crippled ships surrounded by human vessels that could apparently reshape reality itself. The choice was obvious. Ambassador Mitchell, he said formally, the Zelrani Confederation accepts your offer of diplomatic relations. We will withdraw from human territory immediately and establish formal communication channels for future negotiations. Excellent, Mitchell replied warmly. I think this could be the beginning of a very productive relationship between our species. As the human fleet began the process of repairing and refueling the disabled Confederation ships, Vexthul reflected on the day's events. He had come to this system expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, he had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that treated warfare as applied science and diplomacy as advanced engineering. The final surprise came as his fleet prepared to depart. Dr. Park transported aboard his flagship with a small device that she handed to Science Officer Credan. This is a basic medical scanner based on human technology, she explained. It's a gesture of good faith from our scientific community to yours. Study it, reverse engineer it, improve upon it. We believe that scientific knowledge should be shared for the benefit of all sapient species. As the Confederation fleet limped away from the system, Vexthul realized that humanity represented something new in the galaxy, a species that combined overwhelming military capability with genuine desire for peaceful cooperation. They could conquer anyone, but they preferred to make friends. It was a lesson that the Confederation would not forget, and one that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. The humans had shown their true colors. They were terrifyingly powerful, impossibly innovative, and genuinely interested in making the galaxy a better place for everyone, even their enemies.